The rehearsal dinner was at a place my future mother-in-law had chosen, which should have been my first clue that the evening wasn't really about me. It was a private room at Osteria Romana in Scottsdale. Warm lighting, heavy linen napkins, the kind of restaurant where the menu doesn't list prices because the people who eat there don't need to ask. 43 people, his family and mine, and the friends we'd collected over 6 years together, were gathered to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest week of my life. I was wearing the dress I'd bought specifically for this night, a deep burgundy lap that my best friend said made me look like someone who had her life completely together. I did not have my life completely together, but I thought I was close. My fiancé was across the room talking to his uncle, laughing at something with his whole body the way he did when he was comfortable and happy. I loved that laugh. I had built a lot of plans around that laugh. His mother stood near the head of the table, the de facto center of every room she entered. She had the particular confidence of a woman who had never once been told no by anyone she considered important. She squeezed my arm when I walked in and said, "You look lovely, sweetheart," and I thanked her and meant it, and didn't notice until much later that she hadn't introduced me to the two cousins standing directly beside her. I was already a peripheral detail in her party. The dinner was good. The wine was better. I was starting to relax into it, starting to feel the warmth of the room and the noise and the accumulated love of people who had come from 4 states to watch us get married in 2 days. And then his sister stood up. She's 4 years older than him, sharp in the way that gets described as driven in men and a lot in women. She tapped her knife against her glass and smiled the smile of someone who has been rehearsing. "I want to say something," she said, "because this family doesn't do things halfway." Laughter. The comfortable laughter of people who know the person talking. When my brother told me he was serious about someone, I'll be honest, I was protective. We're a close family. We don't just add people. We integrate them. She paused on that word like it was something to aspire to. But now that I've gotten to know her, I'm excited because I think she understands what it means to be part of something bigger than yourself. I smiled. I was still smiling. We're a family that takes care of each other, the women in this family especially. My mother has held this family together for 30 years. The holidays, the finances, the relationships, all of it. And when you're part of this family, that becomes your calling too. She looked directly at me. "I know you're going to be amazing at it. You have that capacity. I can already tell you're someone who knows how to put others first." The room made a soft, appreciative sound. I sat very still. She wasn't done. We've actually been talking as a family about how to make the transition smooth. Since you'll be the one working closer to home once you two settle in Tempe, it makes sense for you to take point on the family calendar. Keeping track of mom and dad's appointments, coordinating the big gatherings, it's a lot, but it's how you really become the heart of something. Another pause, another smile aimed at me. "We're so happy you're going to be part of holding us together." She raised her glass. The room raised their glasses. My best friend, sitting 2 seats to my left, did not raise her glass. She was looking at me with an expression that asked, very quietly, if I was okay. I was not okay. I looked at my fiancé. He was looking at his plate. Not with guilt, exactly. With the particular stillness of a person who has been informed of something in advance and has decided that staying quiet is the same as staying neutral. I set down my wine glass. "Thank you," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. "I actually have a question, if that's all right." His sister blinked. "Of course. When you say take point on the family calendar, are we talking about the shared Google calendar we all use or something more involved?" A small, stiff laugh. "It's just, making sure things get coordinated. Mom's doctor appointments, the quarterly dinners, reaching out to family when there are things coming up. It's not a big deal." Is it something someone in the family currently does? A beat. My mother has always managed it, but she won't be managing it once I come along. I'll be taking it over. It's not like that. It's just, I'm curious, I said, keeping my voice the same pleasant, interested tone I use with difficult clients, what the plan is for the things I currently manage. I run the accounts for 6 properties in my portfolio. I have a business partner I split work with. I have my own family, my own parents, who also have doctor appointments. Is there a family meeting where we've discussed who's handling those things? Or is the assumption that I'll absorb all the new responsibilities because I'll be the one living closest? The room had gone very quiet. His mother said gently, "Sweetheart, nobody's assigning you duties. It's just how family works." I'd love to understand how it works, I said. Specifically, what my husband will be contributing to the family coordination you're describing. He also lives in Tempe. He also has availability. His sister's smile had gone rigid. Men in our family provide stability, I finished, because I had already heard this language somewhere in the subtext of the last year and a half. Yes, I'm familiar with that framework. I'd just like to know what stability looks like on a Tuesday when your mother has a cardiology appointment and I have a closing escrow and your brother has, I assume, his job. My fiancé finally looked up. Can we not do this here? And there it was. Not a defense of me. Not a gentle redirect. A request to protect the evening from my inconvenient questions. I looked at him for a long moment. 6 years. I had known this man for 6 years, through his father's hip surgery and his sister's divorce and the startup he burned through savings on before it failed. I had been the person he called at 11 at night when he was scared. I had thought that meant something about what I was to him. "You're right," I said. "Not the time." I picked up my wine and turned to my left and talked to my best friend about nothing for the rest of dinner. She kept her hand near mine on the table, which was the most comfort I had received since I sat down. We shared a rideshare home. She didn't say anything until we were 2 blocks from my apartment. Then she said, "What do you need?" "I need to look at some paperwork," I said. She looked at me. "What paperwork?" "The deed." She was a paralegal at a real estate firm. She went very still. "Tell me exactly what's in your name." Here is what I had, a 4-bedroom house in Tempe that we had bought together 8 months ago, when things felt settled and permanent, and like the kind of decision you make when you're certain. I had contributed $92,000 in down payment, savings from 7 years of building a property management business from 2 units to 12. He had contributed $18,000, which was the last of a family gift from his grandfather's estate. The title had been handled by a notary his mother recommended, a man who had done business with their family for decades. I had read the documents, I thought. She came upstairs and sat with me at my kitchen table while I pulled up the county recorder site on my laptop. She leaned in. "Read me the vesting," she said. I read it. Then I read it again. His name appeared twice. Mine appeared once, as a beneficiary. The controlling interest, the document was specific about this, was held by him as trustee of a family living trust established 4 years before I had ever met him. "He has sole authority," my best friend said, her voice flat. "He can sell it, refinance it, transfer it. You can't stop him. But my name is on it, your name is on it, like a passenger's name is on a plane ticket. You're acknowledged, but you don't fly the plane." I sat back in my chair. She said quietly, "How long ago did you sign?" 8 months. "And you didn't have your own attorney review the documents?" I had not. We had been together for 6 years. I had trusted the notary his mother recommended. I had been in love, and certain and stupid in the specific way that love makes smart people stupid. "Okay," she said, "here's what we're going to do." She pulled out her phone and called her supervising attorney, a woman she had worked with for 3 years who specialized in property law. It was 10:45 at night. The attorney answered on the second ring. By midnight, I had a consultation scheduled for 8 the next morning, had forwarded every document I could locate, and had drafted a text to my fiancé that said, "I need some space tonight. I'm staying at my place. We'll talk tomorrow." He called 4 times before midnight. I sent each one to voicemail. The attorney's office was in a glass building in downtown Phoenix. She had the composed efficiency of someone who had seen everything and had stopped being surprised by any of it. She pulled up the title documents on her screen and spent 3 minutes reading in silence before she looked at me. "This is a revocable living trust," she said. "He's the trustee and the primary beneficiary. The trust predates your relationship by 4 years, which means it was established as a family asset vehicle long before you were in the picture. When you purchased the property together, instead of taking title as joint tenants or as tenants in common, which would have given you equal control, the title was structured to drop your contribution into a trust where you have a beneficial interest but no control." What does that mean in practice? It means if he decides tomorrow to sell the house, list it for rent, or transfer his interest to a family member, he can do that without your knowledge or consent. Your $92,000 is in there. It's acknowledged, but you can't do anything with it unless he agrees. I felt the floor tilt. Is that legal? It's legal. Whether you consented to it with full understanding is a different question. If you signed documents without understanding that your contribution was going into a controlled trust rather than establishing joint ownership, that's potentially fraud in the inducement, especially if someone represented the arrangement to you as equal partnership. They said we'd both own it. Did you receive anything in writing to that effect? I pulled out my phone and scrolled back 14 months. Found a text from his mother. "So glad you two are doing this together. It's going to be wonderful to have a home that belongs to both of you." Found a text from him, "Babe, it's ours. It's going to be ours." Found a voicemail I'd saved because I listened to it sometimes when I was stressed. His voice saying, "I can't believe we're buying a house. Our house." I keep saying it because I can't believe it. I showed the attorney the texts. She read them carefully. "These help," she said. "They establish reasonable reliance on a representation of joint ownership. Combined with the title structure and the context of who drafted it, we have a viable claim. What do I do?" First, and this is important, do not confront him directly yet. Do not discuss the title, the trust, or the legal issue with anyone in his family. Second, do not sign anything between now and when this is resolved. No prenuptial agreements with rushed timelines, no property modifications, nothing. Third, I send the demand letter today. The wedding was in 2 days. I said, "The wedding is in 2 days." She looked at me with an expression that wasn't unkind. "That's a personal decision. But legally, whether you proceed with the wedding is separate from what we do about the property." I nodded. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was somewhere on the other side of crying where everything becomes very clear and very cold. She drafted the demand letter. It named the trust, described the title structure, cited the representations made to me, and gave his family's attorney 48 hours to transfer the property into true joint tenancy with me as co-owner of equal standing. I walked out of the building into Phoenix heat and called my parents. My mother picked up. I said, "I need to tell you something and I need you to not react until I finish." And I told her everything, from the rehearsal dinner speech to the title document to the attorney's office. My mother was quiet for the length of it. My father, who had picked up on the extension without me realizing, was also quiet. When I finished, my father said, "What do you need from us?" I said, "I need you to know. I'll handle the rest." He said, "We know you will." I texted my fiancé, "Can we meet? Just you. Not your sister or your mother. Just you." He replied in 4 minutes, "Of course. I'll come to you." He arrived looking nervous in the specific way of someone who already knows what the conversation is about. He sat across from me at the kitchen table where I had sat the night before with my best friend. He wrapped both hands around a mug of coffee I had made him out of some residual reflex of hospitality. I said, "Tell me about the living trust." His face changed, just slightly. The way a face changes when a word lands somewhere it shouldn't. "What do you mean?" "The living trust your name is on as trustee, the one the house is held in. Tell me about it. It's a family thing. Estate planning. My dad's attorney set it up years ago. Did you know that my contribution went into the trust rather than establishing co-ownership?" He was quiet. "Did you know that as the trustee, you can sell our house without my agreement?" "That's not how we'd ever operate," he said. "That's not what it means for us, but it's what it means legally." Another silence, longer. My dad's attorney said it was the simplest structure for protecting assets. He said it wouldn't affect day to day. "It affects every day," I said. "My $92,000 is in a trust I have no control over. That affects every day." He leaned forward. "Emily," and then stopped himself and said my name instead. My actual name, and I registered the slip and filed it away. "I would never use that against you. You know that." "I know what I thought I knew," I said. "I'm less certain about what I actually know. This is my family's way of handling things. It's how they've structured assets for 30 years. It wasn't meant to." "Was your sister's speech last night planned?" Silence. "Did she tell you in advance what she was going to say?" He looked at the table. "I need you to answer that." "She mentioned she wanted to say something about family roles," he said. "I didn't know the specifics." "But you knew." He didn't answer. Which was an answer. I stood up and crossed to the window. The neighborhood outside looked completely ordinary. A kid on a bicycle. Someone walking a dog. The specific normalcy of a world that has no idea you are in the middle of realizing something irrevocable. "I want to marry you," he said to my back. "That's real, whatever the paperwork says." "The paperwork is real too," I said. "It's more real than feelings. Feelings change. Deeds don't, not without a judge." "We can fix the deed." "Your family's attorney sent that structure. Your mother recommended him. Your sister outlined my domestic responsibilities at a dinner party in front of 43 people while you looked at your plate." I turned around. "I need to know what I'm actually marrying, not the version of you that calls at 11 at night when he's scared. The version of you that lets his family build a legal structure around my money without telling me." He said in a quiet and terrible voice. "They would have made it very difficult if I'd pushed back." "Difficult how?" "My dad's trust. Not the house, the family trust. My inheritance is at their discretion until I'm 40. If I do things they disapprove of, they can restructure. That's not a threat. That's just how it works." There it was, the machinery underneath everything. He wasn't a villain. He was a person who had grown up in a system that rewarded compliance, and he had become very good at compliance and had never seriously considered the cost of it until the cost landed on someone he actually loved. I said, "You should have told me." "I know. Before the house. Before the engagement. Before I built my future around someone who couldn't protect his own." "I know." His voice cracked on the second one. I sat back down. We were quiet for a long time. "I need to cancel the wedding," I said finally. "Not us, necessarily. The wedding. The Saturday ceremony. I need time that isn't 2 days." He looked up. "My mother will." "I know what your mother will do," I said. "That's why I need my attorney to have already sent the letter before she does it." His phone buzzed on the table between us. He glanced at it. His face went gray. "That's her," he said. "Probably." I picked up my own phone and called the venue. In Arizona, wedding venue cancellation policies vary. Ours required 60 days notice for a full refund. 2 days out, we would lose the deposit, approximately $11,000 split between deposits on the space, the catering, and the photography. It was money I would grieve later. Right now, it was a cost of doing the right thing, and I paid costs like that with the particular clarity of someone who has already run the numbers on the alternative. The venue coordinator was sympathetic in the professional way of someone who has made this exact call before. She confirmed what would be refundable, what wouldn't, and said she was sorry. I thanked her. I made 4 more calls. Florist, band, hair and makeup, officiant, each one professional and not unkind. His phone was buzzing continuously now. He silenced it. Tell her whatever you need to tell her, I said, but tell her through the attorney. My attorney's letter went out this morning. Whatever your family does next should go through legal channels because that's where we are now. He nodded. His eyes were wet. I felt something for that. A real feeling, actual grief for a version of the week that wasn't happening. But grief doesn't override clarity. I had learned that the night my grandmother died during finals week junior year, and I sat with my feelings until midnight and then finished the exam because the exam was still due. He left an hour later. His family called me 11 times between noon and 4 o'clock. I let them all go to voicemail. My best friend came over with groceries and made soup and didn't tell me what to do about any of it, which was the precise thing I needed. At 6:30, my attorney called. They've responded, she said. Their attorney, a man named Whitfield, who has represented the family for 20 years, is calling the demand letter inflammatory and says the trust structure was disclosed and understood by all parties at closing. It wasn't. That's what we'll demonstrate. More immediately, there's been a new filing in the last 3 hours. He's transferred his trustee interest to his father. I sat very still. He doesn't have the sole control anymore, my attorney continued. His father does, which means it's now going to be harder to make the change without the father's cooperation. They did this quickly, which tells me they're scared in moving to protect the asset. Can they do that? Yes. It's a revocable trust. They can restructure the trustee arrangement. They were hoping to make the property harder to reach before we filed anything. What do we do? We file, she said simply. We file for fraudulent transfer because moving that asset in response to a legal demand is exactly that. Refile for constructive trust, establishing your equitable interest. And we name the father as a defendant now too. This move doesn't help them. It just makes it messier for everyone. She filed by 8 o'clock that night. At 9, I got a voicemail from his mother. I played it in the dark of my living room with the soup bowls still on the coffee table. Her voice was different than the rehearsal dinner. The warmth was gone, replaced by something that wanted to sound patient but was actually afraid. I know things feel overwhelming, she said, but what you're doing is going to damage a lot of relationships that could have been beautiful. We want to help you understand that we had your best interests in mind with the trust. Family assets are complex. This isn't adversarial unless you make it that way. I really hope you'll come talk to us before going further down this road. We love you. We want this to work. I played it a second time. Then I forwarded it to my attorney with a note. Does we had your best interests in mind help our fraud claim? She wrote back in 20 minutes. Yes. I didn't sleep much. I made a list. On one side, what I had given. On the other, what I had been given without my knowledge. The list on the first side was long. 7 years of savings. Trust so complete I hadn't thought to have a lawyer review a real estate closing. A life rearranged towards someone else's city, someone else's family calendar, someone else's vision of what a wife does and is. The list on the second side was also long, just not in the way they had intended. 3 days later, sitting in my attorney's office with the settlement documents in front of me, I finally cried. Not dramatically, just a quiet leaking of something that had been held under pressure for 96 hours. It was a clean settlement because they were frightened and the fraudulent transfer filing had exposed them to something larger than a property dispute. The terms title transferred into my name as sole owner within 10 business days. Full restitution of my down payment plus 4% annual appreciation for the 8 months of ownership. A signed written acknowledgement from my former fiancé that the ownership structure of the property had not been clearly disclosed to me prior to closing. A mutual, non-disparagement clause limited to the property transaction. Nothing silencing me about the rehearsal dinner speech or the family dynamics or the reason I had cancelled the wedding. That last part was my attorney's insistence and I was grateful for it. My former fiancé's name appeared on the signature line below a paragraph admitting to the misrepresentation. He had called me the night before the signing. I had answered. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not for the legal documents, for all of it, for not being someone you could count on." I believed him. I also no longer required his belief in order to proceed. "Take care of yourself," I said. "I mean that." "I know you do," he said. I moved out of the Tempe house into a month-to-month rental in Phoenix. The first Friday I was there, my best friend drove over with a bottle of wine and her laptop, and we sat on the floor because I didn't have furniture yet, and we started building something I had been thinking about since I sat at my kitchen table looking at a title document that had my name on it in the wrong way. I called it the Clear Title Project. The concept was simple: free or low-cost legal review of real estate documents for first-time home buyers in cohabitation or engaged married couples, with particular focus on title vesting and trust structures. Free 30-minute consultations before closing. Educational workshops. A partnership with 2 family law attorneys and a property law specialist who agreed to do intake consultations pro bono. My attorney laughed when I told her, "You're building the thing that would have saved you." "Someone has to," I said. She became our first partner. 6 weeks later, a woman found our website and submitted a consultation request. She was engaged, purchasing a home with her fiancé's family's help, and the title was being handled by a notary the family had used for years. The documents had arrived and something felt off, but she couldn't identify what. We got on the phone. She sent us the documents. It was a similar structure to mine, different trust name, different state, same machinery. She did not close on that house until the title was restructured in a way she understood and had chosen. She sent us a thank you email 2 weeks later that I have since saved in a folder I look at when things are hard. The Tempe house sold 4 months after the settlement. The market had been good to us, and the proceeds added to the restitution payment left me with more than I had started with. I put it in an account, and I have not touched it for anything I didn't choose deliberately. My former fiancé's family, I heard through the ambient transmission of mutual connections, had retained a new family attorney after Whitfield retired. The sister had relocated to Dallas for a job, which struck me as fitting. His mother had called once, 3 months after everything, and left a voicemail I still have not listened to. Maybe I will someday. Maybe it's an apology. Maybe it isn't. Either way, it doesn't change anything I now know about myself. What I know, I am someone who asked the right questions even when the room went quiet. I am someone who sat in an attorney's office at 8 in the morning 2 days before my own wedding and did the hard thing because the alternative was a life built on ground I didn't actually own. I am someone who built something out of the rubble, not because it was inspiring, but because it was useful, and because I am the kind of person who cannot look at a problem without wanting to solve it. Last month, I spoke at a continuing education seminar for real estate agents in Phoenix. Topic: Title vesting in community property states. What agents should know before the closing table. 37 agents. I told them the outline of my story, without the names and without the wedding dress, and they listened the way people listen when they recognize something they've seen before. At the end, a woman in the front row raised her hand and said, "What do you tell people who feel embarrassed that they didn't catch it themselves?" I thought about that kitchen table. The late night, the laptop, the title document, my best friend on the phone with her attorney at 10:45. I tell them that trust isn't stupidity, I said. Exploiting trust is the crime, not having it. She nodded. The room nodded with her. I drove home on a warm October evening with the windows down and the radio on something I didn't recognize and didn't turn off. The apartment I live in now is mine on every line of every document. I chose the furniture. I chose the neighborhood. I chose the view from the window, which is not spectacular, just a quiet street with a pepper tree that drops leaves I have to sweep off the walk, which I do every Saturday morning because it is my walk and I am the one who decided to sweep it. That is enough. It turns out that is exactly enough.